From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Vaughn Warnke, author, outdoor writer, videographer, speaker, blogger, and podcaster, and I'm so excited that you've taken the opportunity to download our show or stream it online, however you are listening. Thank you so much for doing so. All right, this show is a new one this week, as we try to do every 2 weeks, release new shows, and it's been a little crazy in my life lately because I work from home and I do this podcast from a home office studio, and our kitchen is being remodeled this week and last week, and it's just been absolutely crazy. So I recorded this podcast interview in the late evening hours, and we have an awesome guest this week. His name is Eric Henderson. And this is to kind of celebrate the article that I wrote for the March issue called Airgunning for Hogs and Exotics. And this is a great guest to have on the show for such a occasion, because Eric Henderson is an awesome guest for airgunning for hogs and exotics. You know, his specialty is airgunning from way back when he first started doing air guns. He would take air guns that were big bore or even small bore air guns and modify them to be even bigger and better than what they originally were made by the manufacturer to be. And so he's done a lot of modifying to air guns in the past, still does today with some of the current PCP air guns that we have out there. And I thought having him on the show would just be a lot of fun this week, because he is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to how to properly use air guns, how to take game at a long, effective ranges with air guns. In fact, his one video that he has on YouTube right now is him taking a exotic animal at 198 yards with an Air Force Texan. And that, I don't believe, has been done on camera before at that distance. So I've shot a hog from well underneath 100 yards with my Texan, which is on the video that I've got featured in the magazine. And but he's done some really amazing things with air guns at long ranges on video, and I loved having him on the show this week. I think you'll really enjoy this interview with Mr. Eric Henderson. Joining me on the phone, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Eric Henderson. And Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Better than I deserve. It's my usual answer. And tell us how you got started into air guns and the hunting industry as we know you today.
Oh, let's see. If we go way back, I give all the credit to my father to introduce me to the outdoors. I did a lot of fishing as a kid. We didn't do a lot of hunting. Maybe some bird hunting, but didn't do any deer or any rifle hunting or anything like that. But I did a lot of fishing. We did a lot of camping, ran trout lines. We did a lot of trapping also. So, my father introduced me to the outdoors. There was a kind of a void in there for several years where I didn't do any fishing or anything. And then I got into shooting air rifles.
Cool.
I've always been into doing things different. I don't know if you remember when the Honda Civics became popular. They put turbochargers on them, stuff like that.
Yes,
I got into that. So I'm always into taking something that you wouldn't think would be capable of doing something and then amazing everybody with it.
Tricking it out, as it would be, right?
Yes. I had a turbocharged Honda Civic, and I was out there just wasting Mustangs. So, I got into air rifles, and I had a break barrel Marksman, I think it was, and we were shooting cowbirds. I was working in Wisconsin. I do paintless dent repair, and I travel all over the country. And I was working in Wisconsin, and I was shooting some cowbirds and stuff like that. And I was surfing the internet. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, and was, I'd say, at least 15 years ago. And I come across these big bores.
Yes.
And it just so happened, let me step back here. I found the RWS 9mm, which is made by Shinsung. This is back when it was labeled as RWS. And I started shooting that. And I shot that for a while. And then I was working in Minnesota, and I saw where there was an airgun show, and I went to the airgun show, met up with Dennis Quackenbush, where I bought my first Quackenbush air rifle.
Oh, cool.
And it was a 50 caliber. back then, he would actually leave the airgun show with Airguns. He didn't really sell that many of them because they weren't that popular as far as big bores. That airgun grew into what we call now the Big Green Monster. My friend Bob Dean, he died a few years ago. He was big into the big bores. He was really talented in modifying them for a lot of power. We put a 457 caliber barrel on it, made by Dennis Quackenbush, and that thing was producing a little over 600 foot-pounds. But we're talking back in, 2005.
So that was pretty innovative at that time, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
That's really never a one-off kind of thing that's never been done before.
Right, that was way back then. Let's see. Since then, a lot of companies come out with powerful air guns. I've been working a lot with Air Force air guns, which they make a quality product. They're excellent people to deal with. Their customer service is number one. And this recently, I got a 308 caliber from them, and I actually shot a 3-shot group, 1 inch at 150 yards the other day.
I saw that on the Facebook group. I think that's amazing accuracy. And that's at how many yards? 150, you said?
150 yards.
That's
and
incredible.
I just got the gun.
You just got the gun, and it's that accurate right out of the box. You're not doing any major modification to that one just yet, right?
I haven't done any modifications to that one or my 457.
Okay,
and
very
we
good.
shot that out to 500 yards.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things I wanted to bring up on this show, is that I get the question a lot when I bring up air guns and big bore air guns, as we know them, and that's anything above, a 308 up to a 50 cal? Would that be safe?
I would say about 10 years ago, it was from then forward, or from then back, it was 25 caliber. 25 was considered, or I don't think it's much the case anymore. I think 308 on up is really considered a big bore.
A big bore air gun. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And the advantage that Air Force has is they make the 45 caliber air gun, and they make the 357 caliber air gun, and then they make the 308. And the 357 and 308 were new in 2016 at SHOT Show. And then this year they're coming out with the 45 caliber suppressed or super suppressed SS model.
Right.
And I'm excited to get my hands on one of those because
me too.
I mean, a gun that is that, they're louder than what you think, folks, if you've never shot a big bore one before, a big bore air gun before, but they are, with the silencer, it's just deadly power, it's just amazing. Wouldn't you say that?
Definitely.
They're amazing.
The air guns aren't quiet. People ask me, well, how loud are these? And I said, you wouldn't shoot one of these in your backyard.
Right.
And so when you add the suppressor to it, it's still a loud whoosh of air.
Right.
I remember way back a long time ago, we had we don't call them suppressors, we call them moderators.
Oh, okay.
I stuck one on the end of my 308 air rifle, and I was a couple hundred yards away, and my buddy was shooting, and I could still hear it, but it wasn't a pop. It was more like a big loud whoosh, and but it doesn't have the report. It's not as loud.
Right.
So yeah, it's this is way back when. Now the technology for the airgun moderators are a lot better, especially the Air Force design. They have the internal suppression system on a lot of their guns, which do have working baffles, which I'm sure it has one in the new Super Suppress. So it's going to work a lot better than it did a long time ago. But yeah, it's going to be a lot quieter.
Right. No, that is a lot quieter than the air guns of the past, the big bore air guns of the past. But the interesting thing is when I had this out on the hog hunt that I wrote the magazine article about for the March issue, it was interesting because my friend that was with me started plugging his ears, and I said, it's not really that loud. It's not as loud as an AR-15 going off or a shotgun going off. It's not where it's going to make your ears ring. Would you agree?
I would agree. If you're in an open field and there's nothing to reflect the sound back, it won't ring your ears.
But if you're a really enclosed area, that's a different story. No, that's what I'm saying.
You got a wall next to you,
right?
Next to a wall or something like that. Yeah, my ears are a little sensitive, and any loud noise will make them ring.
Right.
I mean, I can clap my hands and make them ring, but in an open field, it won't make my ears ring.
That's good to know. So they're not that loud, is what I'm trying to say. And with a lot of folks went through and suppressed their air guns, their Texan before the integral suppressor came along. And I thought that was interesting, seeing some of those modifications. But the one thing that's really cool about you, Eric, is that you like to mod your guns and make them even bigger and better than what they come out of the box capable of. Is that right?
The Quackenbushes are the ones I usually end up modding. Dennis makes an excellent product. He makes a product that, kind of for everybody. It's not something that is the most powerful or the weakest. It's like in the middle of the road.
Right.
I like my guns to have the first shot with the most power. And I usually like running higher pressure. He doesn't like telling people to do that. I do it anyway.
Sure.
I usually run, 35, 36, 3700 sometimes. It is safe on the gun. I've never had any problems.
And that's PSI, right? 35 to 3600
yes.
PSI. Okay, I just want to make sure because not all of our audience knows everything about air guns like you and I do. So
right. This regular compressed air,
right.
Not CO2, not nitrogen, just regular compressed air.
Use a carbon. I'm sorry.
I have my own air compressor, 5,000 PSI air compressor, and I have two large carbon fiber tanks that hold 4,500 PSI. So, I got a lot of air to work with. I also put a bigger transfer port so it can flow more air, which will actually end up bringing down my fill pressure.
Right.
To get the same power. When I first started out, I put a heavier spring in it. It'd be really hard to cock the gun, but, I'm 6'4". I don't have any problem cocking the gun. Put a heavier hammer in it. You open up the transfer port, put more air in it, and there you have more power. Obviously, the longer barrel gives you more power. The Air Force Texan has a 34-inch?
I think so.
34-inch barrel. And, that's where a lot of the power comes from. But, like I said, I'm 6'4". That doesn't really, bother me at all. You're a tall guy, too. So
yeah, I'm 6'5", so no, it doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
It makes for a long gun, but I mean, it's I love my Texan. I mean, out of all the guns that I own,
it's not cumbersome, especially with the way the Air Force gun is made. You don't have the big stock in the front. Without a scope, the gun weighs 8 pounds.
Right. It's relatively light for what it is. I mean, for being an air gun. And the thing is, I just got my my air tank was due for inspection and the hydros and all that stuff gone to be done on it. And that was done back in January. And when you own an air gun, or especially a big bore air gun, they go through a lot of air. So you want to get a scuba tank at the very least, if not a carbon fiber tank like the fire department uses. They're a little bit more expensive, but a scuba tank, I think I paid $120, I think, for mine. And to get it inspected every year is a few bucks, and get it filled is a few bucks. But it's worth it to have it because it's better than pumping air. Is that right, Eric?
That is true. It all depends on how much power you're running,
right, and how much you shoot.
I started out with a hand pump on my Quackenbush way back then, and I was much younger then.
Right.
I felt muscles I never knew I had. But,
it's a workout.
After pumping for a year or so, I didn't have any problem pumping the gun.
Right.
I'm about to turn 48 years old now, and you wouldn't catch me pumping up a gun if I had to.
Right.
And then I switched to a scuba tank. Maximum fill pressure of a scuba tank, most people fill it to is like 3,300.
Or 3,000 pounds is what mine is, but yeah, same idea.
Right. Well, some people push it to 33, and it gives you a couple extra shots.
Right.
That worked for a little while, and then I moved to the carbon fiber tank.
That's cool. So, I mean, it's not a lot to get you by the air gun. You get the Foster fitting or whatever they call it, the little valve knob that goes on the scuba tank that has a fitting that goes onto your air gun. And you basically turn the scuba tank, where it releases air, and load up your gun with air, and then turn it off, release the valve, and you're good to go. It does not take long at all to fill one of these air guns. And they're a blast to shoot just for target shooting. You can shoot ball ammunition, round ball. You can shoot slugs. You can shoot. There's just a wide variety of weights in the caliber of slugs that you use in air guns, and it's just a blast. It's some of the funnest shooting I've ever done. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. I mean, 95% of my hunting nowadays is air rifle.
Wow.
And people ask me, what about the cost? And I said, the initial investment is where your cost is. Your air tanks, obviously the gun, and if you can afford it, a way to pressurize your air tanks. I have an Airtex air compressor right here in Texas, and I've been using it since 2006 is when I bought it.
Oh wow! So that's over 10 years.
I actually bought it right before I went to Africa back
in
2006. Cool. And I did a big air gun hunt in Africa with Jim Chapman and Randy Mitchell.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and the thing that is interesting is even if you don't get a whole fill set up to fill up your air tank, you can go to a scuba shop and get it for, I don't know, $6 or $7, would you say, Eric, right? When's the last time you've done that? I don't remember what it was for me.
A long time ago.
It's about $6 or $7, I guess, is what they charge me to do a fill at my scuba shop, but just an idea.
I remember when I went to the one in Dallas, I think it was like $15.
Okay, well, it's still not very much. I mean, that's what.
No, it's very cheap.
It just depends on where you live in Texas, but I mean, it's not a lot of money to maintain one and keep one up, a tank up, and Air Force has a good warranty on their air guns as well, and there's not a lot to really go wrong with an air gun. Sometimes your tank may leak. I had that issue with my Talon P the other day, and I sent that off to Air Force, and they took care of it, and it's as good as new now. And right. I love the Air Force air guns line of guns. They're really, really good, and the big bores, now that they're in that market, it's hard to beat. I mean, it's really nice.
When it comes to maintenance on air guns, you're working with O-rings and valves and high pressure. Those things they wear and tear. Sometimes if you fill it too quickly, the O-rings will heat up. The air will heat up, and you'll start to bake your O-rings.
Right.
So you be careful how fast you fill it. But you take care of everything. They have special air gun oil for O-rings and stuff like that. Just take care of it. It'll last you a long time.
Right. And I want to switch gears real quick with you, Eric, and just see, you out of all the folks that I've known in the air gun industry have probably taken more animals at a longer range than just about anybody I've ever met. And especially doing all this on camera, because you've been recording your own hunts for over 10 years. Is that right?
That is correct. I have the longest kill on video as far as a big game animal. I know of people who've done longer kills with air guns, but as far as being on video, yes, I have the longest distance, which would be 198 yards.
And that's another misconception that a lot of people have. After you get out past 100 yards, a lot of people, they treat an air gun like a muzzleloader, and most muzzleloaders these days are absolutely phenomenal. They're like shooting a centerfire rifle and a single shot
right.
in a lot of ways. But, there's so much kinetic energy and foot-pounds of kinetic energy that go down range with one of these big bore air guns like the Texan. It bears witness to consider that you can make an accurate, ethical shot past 100 yards. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Let's see. When I bought my first Quackenbush, it was putting out 240 foot-pounds, I think it was, and I was shooting round ball. And right. I was talking to us about hunting deer with it, and he was suggesting, keep it within 50 yards. And, do a shoulder shot on a deer, and it'll kill it. That's with 240 foot-pounds. I did the calculations on my Air Force Texan, and at 500 yards, it's still putting out over 400 foot-pounds.
That is amazing.
That's shooting a 330-grain bullet at around 850 feet per second.
Holy smokes. I didn't realize. I knew the ballistics somewhat, but not at those kind of ranges, not at the extended ranges like you were talking about. You've got a lot of bullet drop at that range, but that's still a lot of power at that far.
Also, it's what type of bullet you're shooting, obviously. I was a friend of mine, Seth Rowland. He owns BigBoreAirGunAmmo.com.
Yes.
And I use mostly his stuff. Great product. All my long distance kills were done with his bullets. It is a 330 grain pointed bullet. Actually, it's a cup nose with a ballistic tip on the end, kind of a little polymer or hard plastic tip.
Oh, okay.
And it gives it a great ballistic coefficient.
I've got some of those too. They're ballistic tips is what he calls them basically, but they're lathed, like a lathed round tip that looks like a ballistic tip sabot, like a shotgun sabot slug. Mm-hmm. But they fly amazingly too. I've had nothing but luck with shooting those, as far as accuracy goes. So that's great. So I would definitely wanted to mention Seth Rowland as part of the show as well, because he's a heck of a guy and has really done a lot to advance the sport of air gunning and hunting with air guns. So tell me some of the exotics and other animals that you've taken with your air gun, because you've definitely taken a lot with that one with your air guns.
Oh, let me start off by talking about the two bison hunts that I actually filmed. I didn't shoot them, but I filmed two bison hunts with air rifles. One was with the Big Bore Bob 20 millimeter, and the other one is with the Quackenbush 457 that I took to Africa. I sold it to a friend of mine, and he took a bison with it.
I see.
Then the ones I've actually taken myself, oh geez, let's see, a ton of pig.
Yes, ton of hogs.
They're not considered exotics, but just tons and tons of hogs. Most of them have been headshots.
Right.
For this one, that was 118 yards to the head with a Quackenbush 308.
Wow.
Lots of rams, goats, free range mouflon, which those videos were on my YouTube page.
Yes.
I have killed an elk. That's on one of my old DVDs. Then Africa, I shot kudu, bushbuck, duiker, warthog, and impala. I also shot a vervet monkey. I kind of felt bad after I did it. But those things are a nuisance.
Right.
And a big nuisance.
I've heard that.
They'll break your house and destroy your house.
Oh, no.
Let's see. I shot a mongoose, and I shot this is in Africa. Shot a mongoose, and I shot I think they called it an Egyptian goose.
Okay. Familiar with that.
At night, we were spotlighting at night, and there was a goose in the middle of this pond. And they were like, hey, can you hit that? And it was at 80 yards. It was with a Quackenbush 22, and I actually hit it in the head at 80 yards. Let's see what else.
At night, too. That's pretty impressive.
Right. Let's see. I shot a deer in Michigan with, I went hunting up in Michigan. It was a high fence ranch with Jim Chapman and Robert Vogel, who is Mr.
Hollow Point. Oh, yeah.
Makes a great hollow point air rifle bullet.
Yes.
I shot it. I think it hadn't been scored, but everybody guessed it to be like 130, 135 whitetail.
It's a nice buck.
Oh, it's a big buck, and I shot that with a Quackenbush. Let's see. I shot many deer, whitetail deer in Missouri, where it's legal.
Right.
At my friend Brian Cook's property. A lot of those videos are on my website or on my YouTube page.
Right.
Let's see what else. I should have made a list.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to kind of give folks an idea that air guns aren't just what your grandfather grew up with, target shooting in the backyard. I mean, these are some serious lethal killing machines. They really are.
Hey, let's see, axis deer.
The list continues. I love it.
There's I think it was a fallow. I think it was a fallow.
Yeah, fallow deer.
Doe. Yeah, I've killed a lot of animals with my air rifles.
Cool. No, and you've killed more than not that hunting is all about killing, but you've taken more animals with your air rifle than most people that I know. More different species of animals instead of just hunting hogs like I do, or just hunting deer in states where that's legal with air guns and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm trying to make the point with your
different varieties of animals. Yeah,
exactly. With your streak, I guess, if you will, of air gun success, that it definitely is a powerful enough weapon with that kind of foot-pounds of kinetic energy to get the job done.
Which is funny, back when I first started doing this, I was told that I shouldn't be doing this and don't have enough energy to be doing it with.
Yeah.
I wish they would have told me I couldn't do it before I went out and done it.
Right, exactly, because you showed them, that's for sure. So, yeah, I just kind of think it's funny. I mean, the way that the perception in public is, when we were doing the mock-up for the March issue, they had these kind of decent size, but they looked like field pellets that they were going to put on the article. And when I finally went back to them and said, how about some air gun slugs? And I sent them a couple of pictures. So they basically took and cut those slugs out and cut them real good and put them all over the feature, editorial story. And, the conception is you're shooting pellets when really you're shooting, in big bore at least, you're shooting bullets that are, 125 to, 400 grain bullets or larger or smaller.
Right. I mean, when I went to Africa, I was using another company's bullets. They were kind of hard lead back then. Mm-hmm. And, and he makes, it's called Hunter Supply.
Yes.
And he made bullets for, I think, Midway USA was selling them. These are reloading bullets.
Right.
These, obviously aren't pellets. So, these are ones you load into like a 45-70,
right.
or whatever.
But they're lead cast. They're cast lead bullets, basically.
Yeah, just regular
right.
cast bullets. There's nothing special about the bullets, except for the fact that if you use pure lead, you get better velocity.
Right, and better expansion on your game as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you hit a bone or something like that, things are going to flatten out.
Expand. Okay, no, that's good. And tell me also about your experience at longer ranges. Tell us about your 198-yard harvest of that. Was it a ram, if I remember the video correctly?
It was a free-range Mouflon U.
Mouflon U. Okay, that's right. I remember that now.
And there's a place down at the very north end of Del Rio, Texas. It's all free-range. I think it's like 800 acres. Beautiful place to go out and hunt. And this was my second time going out there. And we were up on this hill. We searched for hours for these things, and we were scratching our heads like, where did they go? So we finally we went up to the top of this one hill. We looked down, and there they were down there, and the wind was blowing really hard. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I didn't think that the wind was blowing hard up top, but it wasn't blowing hard down below.
Right.
So I adjusted for the wind, and which was almost a foot. I was aiming at the back end of the Mouflon, and lo and behold, the wind was only blowing up top and not down below, mm-hmm. and I hit the Mouflon towards the back.
Okay.
But it dropped it. It
wow.
hit the ground.
So that happened that you were basically overcompensating if you want to be.
Way overcompensated. If
okay.
I would have aimed dead on to where I wanted it, that bullet would have gone right where I wanted it to
right.
go. I have a chart that's taped to the top of my bottle, and all I have to do is use a rangefinder, which is really important when using these air rifles and shooting longer range, is to know your trajectory.
Yes.
And I have a chart on the top of my bottle to where I can look at the chart and show how many lines down that my point of aim is going to be.
Right.
Which something else I need to point out is I use a first focal plane scope.
I was just getting ready to bring that up, Eric, because I know you love those things. Yeah.
Oh, it's really important when shooting long range with air rifles. And a lot of people don't know what a first focal plane scope is. And basically what it is when you zoom in and out on the scope, your reticle zooms in and out with you. So let's say you have, I don't really use a mill dot, but they are in mills. You'll have your center crosshair. You'll have a small horizontal line. Then you'll have a little bit bigger horizontal line. Then a small one. Then a bigger one. Then a small one. Big one. And it goes on down to about 10 big lines. And my bottom line is around 200 yards. So no matter what power I have the scope set on, you know, the second line down is like 120 yards.
Right.
So, you know, I can zoom it way in or I can zoom it out a little bit, and it'll always be, you know, the same point of aim no matter what power you have the scope set at.
Right.
And so, you know, you sight in the gun, and whenever I travel somewhere, I take a couple shots to make sure I'm still zeroed in. My gun's zeroed in at 100 yards. And then I know I'm on. And then when I go out there, you know, I range find the animal, look at the chart, see where the point of aim is going to be, and put that line on the animal and pull the trigger.
Very good. So that's kind of long range shooting with Airguns 101 for folks.
That's basically it. All the rest is trigger control, breathing, and follow through.
Yeah, follow through. It's very important. So your basic shooting skills, and the thing that I love, I've talked to Yvette Hicks over at Air Force Airguns, and she's a great lady, and is so much fun to talk to at the SHOT Show or NRA show or wherever I meet her, and meet you and Rick and the rest of the Air Force team. You know, the thing that's really cool about Airguns is it's a way to get kids hooked on shooting sports. And, you know, one of the things I'm teaching my son, who's 7.5, is going to the range with my Talon SS, or not, I'm sorry, I always say the Talon SS, with my Talon P, and basically showing him the basics without having to spend a fortune on ammunition. Even it's cheaper even than shooting a 22, really, you know, if you look at it long term. But showing him the basics of trigger control, one shot at a time, because most all Air Force air guns are single shot, and you know, just showing them the fundamentals basically with an air gun. And I think that's vitally important with getting our kids outdoors and shooting, is something simple like that.
Right. It's also safer than shooting a 22. You know, like a 22 short or even a long rifle or whatever, you're using a big solid projectile.
Right.
And, you know, a pellet doesn't carry as far. It totally flattens out whenever it hits something.
Yes.
And it's definitely much safer.
And that's a good point to make. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because, you know, I'm all about getting youth started in the outdoors, and, you know, air guns are an easy way to get them there, but they're a lot more powerful than the ones you and I grew up with. You know, I've got an old break open, you know, 177 caliber that my grandfather handed down to me. And I mean, I cherish that gun because it was his, but it's a Springer, you know, it's a spring loaded one. It's nothing compared to what the PCP guns are of today.
Yeah. Speaking of getting kids into hunting and air rifles, my daughter's already killed 3 deer with her air rifle. And let's see, she just turned 13 in December, and in October she shot her 3rd deer. So at age 12 she'd already, you know, shot 3. It was with a Quackenbush air gun on the Quackenbush farm.
Wow. Up
in Missouri.
And I've seen some of your videos. They're great with your daughter. I mean, I love watching her hunt because she is so stealthy and just awesome.
all 3 of those kills are on my YouTube page.
Oh, cool.
She let's see, when she was 9, she took a Merino Ram with a Quackenbush 50.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I think I've seen that video too. And yeah, that's one you showed me when we were in the SHOT Show hotel room, right?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen that video.
Yeah,
no, that's great. And I will definitely put links to your Adventures of Field webpage and your YouTube channel in the show notes so people can check that out, because I think that's vitally important to check out some of your videos, because, you know, it's one thing to talk about this kind of stuff, but it's another thing to actually watch it in action. And I have a video, of course, that you've watched, Eric, that of me killing a hog, you know, at a decent yardage with a 45 caliber unsuppressed air gun. And then you've got videos of Quackenbush and Air Force Texans and all kinds of different air guns that you're shooting, taking game. And you really show it, I think, better than most folks that I've met. You show it in action better.
Right.
than a lot of folks do. And I definitely have to honor you for that, because there are a lot of folks that just talk the game. You actually walk the talk, So,
I talk a lot about what I do, and I'm not trying to toot my horn.
Oh, I know.
A lot of it is just, if I can do it, everyone else can do it.
Right. This is
put
accessible.
time and energy into it. And, this is more of not look what I did, but look what I did and that you can do too.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, is look what I did and check it out.
For example, like my Adventures Afield YouTube channel, it's not, the show isn't about me. It's about Airguns. I have a lot of other people that I've filmed. I'm just as happy behind the camera as I am in front of it. It's all about promoting the sport of airgun hunting.
Right. And you do that well. And I know I've talked about Airguns on quite a few episodes of the show, but it's because I want to spread the good news and the good cheer of Airguns with the Texas Fish and Game audience, because this is, this is where it's at. I mean, this is an up and coming and growing sport, kind of like bow fishing is, or kind of like 3-gun shooting is, and those kind of things that are growing in the firearms and the shooting and the hunting industry. Air guns are definitely coming up with the speed and the power and the advances of technology that we have today. I mean, it's great. It is an awesome time to be alive and be an air gunner right now. So.
What's funny, there's a lot of states adopting the air gun rules. Missouri, I do believe, being the first one. I just wish Texas would do it. There's a lot of game animals in Texas that I'd love to take with an air rifle.
Right.
I can't shoot javelina. I can go out and shoot a mountain lion, and I can shoot an elk, but I can't legally shoot a javelina.
Isn't that funny?
Love to go after a pronghorn. I've never hunted pronghorn, and I'd love to take a pronghorn with an air rifle.
Right. At a long range even, too, especially with that 308 as flat as that thing shoots,
Right.
So, I mean, and that's a rule right now in Texas, and hopefully this changes one day, but basically your rules say that air guns can only be used for non-game species, unlike, the game species of a deer or pronghorn. But the funny thing is, an elk is considered an exotic, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
anything not native to Texas is an exotic.
Is an exotic, yeah. And there's plenty of big, animals out there, Nilgai and all kinds of different, big boned animals that African animals even, that you can take with an air gun that are exotic, and it's perfectly legal, So
right, like I said, we've killed a 2,000-pound bison.
Yes,
and that was here in Texas, and I haven't. There is a little bit of footage on the internet about that, but I haven't edited the whole hunt. But at 50 yards, took 2 shots. It stood there for a little while, because obviously if it would have started running, it would have bled out faster.
Right.
It just kind of stood there. I wouldn't really call it a hunt. It was more of a shoot. It was a bison.
Wasn't a whole lot of skill involved, but skill for shooting still.
But my friend Stefan took 2 beautiful shots. But, it's capable of doing it.
Right.
So why can't we hunt deer with them?
Right.
And put in the regulation like Missouri does, 40 caliber and larger, powered by an external power source, which would be an air cylinder.
An air tank, right.
Yeah. No springers or anything like that.
Yeah, as long as it's PCP or some kind of technology like PCP, And right. I must also say PCP stands for pre-pneumatic. Say it again. I'm sorry. Pre-charged pneumatic. Forgive me.
Yeah.
So pre-charged pneumatic. Okay, is what I'm trying to say. PCP. Okay, so that basically means it has a decent sized air tank that holds the air, and basically it shoots a charge of air out with every shot. Is that correct?
Correct. It's not considered a firearm because it is stored energy. There's nothing combustible. It is not producing an explosion. So these are not considered firearms by the federal government.
Well, the thing is, to get one that's integrally suppressed is one story, basically, to get an air gun that's already has a suppressor built into it. Right. But to buy a suppressor and put it on an air gun is a gray area, because you need to, most suppressors these days are made for firearms, and you still need an NFA stamp if it's the way that I understand it.
Right, yeah. If you go out and buy an already made suppressor that's made for a firearm,
right,
definitely. I think a lot of the I know people who are making the moderators for the Air Force guns.
Moderators. I've never heard them called moderators before. I must be young to this.
Way back when, we used to call them pickles. We used to call them lead dust catchers.
Oh, okay.
LDC.
LDC.
Lead dust collectors. Environmentally friendly.
Yes, exactly.
Like for the Air Force guns nowadays, there are people making them for them. It slides between the frame and the barrel.
Right.
And it's not something you could just screw onto a gun.
Yes. It's
or onto a firearm. You would have to modify the thing to make it fit a firearm.
Right.
And the way it fits onto the Air Force gun, it only fits an Air Force gun.
Yes, exactly. So, definitely check your laws on suppressors and air guns, but I just think it needs to be said that, it's one thing if it already has a suppressor on it, you don't need an NFA stamp or a tax stamp or anything to own that gun, and they're not considered firearms. So there's a lot of things that you can do, like that. Ammunition, you don't have to buy loaded ammunition. You can just buy pellets or slugs or bullets, if you want to call them that. And the big bore ammunition is not necessarily as cheap as buying commercial loaded ammunition, for firearms. But overall, you want something that's going to expand well, like what Mr. Hollowpoint makes, like what Seth Rowland makes. A lot of these things that are made, specifically for an air gun is what you want to aim for when you're looking for ammunition, right?
Correct.
So I definitely wanted to mention that. Wow, what advice do you have for folks that are just getting into this sport?
A lot of people call me up and talk to me about air guns, and they ask me which gun is best. And first thing I ask them is, what do you want to do with it?
Right.
Do you want to hunt squirrels? Do you want to hunt coyotes? Do you want to hunt deer or bigger? If they want to hunt squirrel up the coyote, I'd tell them to get something like an Air Force Condor or something like that.
Or an Escape or a Talon P or anything like that, right?
Right.
Something that shoots a 25 caliber or 22 caliber projectile.
The 25 and the 22 are very efficient, especially in the Air Force Condor. And you can take up the coyote, 50-yard double lung shot, or if you're accurate, you could take coyote in the head at 100 yards. If you want to go for, raccoons and bigger, coons are pretty tough. Coons up to deer, a 308 would work great.
Sure.
And then if you want to go like coyote and up, you can do 45 caliber.
Which is a heck of a caliber. I mean, that's the first one the Air Force came out with in the big bore arena, and it can take some big boars,
right?
Among other animals.
The beauty about the Air Force Texan 45, if somebody wants to just plink and impress their friends with a 45 caliber air gun, you can shoot round ball. Right. You can turn the power down on the Texan, and you get about 15, 20 shots shooting round ball.
Right, just for target or whatever.
And they're very accurate with round ball.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
And then, they go up from there. A lot of custom makers are making 58 caliber. Let's see, Dennis Quackenbush makes a 58 caliber pistol and rifle.
Wow, and I thought it stopped at 50 caliber, but you're right. I have seen some 58 calibers and other large calibers out there.
Right, there's 12 gauge out there, and then there's the 20 millimeter, which my friend Bob made a long time ago.
Well, and I was also going to mention the new thing that's out with was it Sam Yang, the Airbolt?
Oh yes, yeah. It's a Sam Yang makes a 50 caliber rifle, and they make a 50 caliber shotgun.
Yes. And
you can put the Airbolt into either one. Jim Chapman was saying that it's a little bit more accurate because it actually spins it in the rifle.
It rifles it, right? I didn't even think about that before you mentioned that. Yeah.
let's see. I saw a video with Keith Warren up in, I think it's Saskatchewan. He shot a really nice buck with the airbolt.
Wow. No, that's great. So that's basically shooting a equivalent of a specially designed crossbow bolt out of an air gun.
Yeah, it's like 400 feet per second.
They can also shoot, a bullet. You don't have to go buy a separate gun to shoot a bolt out of. And, Pioneer came out with the airbow originally, and this is kind of a play off of that, but you don't have to buy a special gun or a special air gun that is only chambered to shoot arrows or only, chambered to shoot.
Right.
You have some versatility, and I think that's one thing that company came out with that is very interesting this year.
I think it is. Air Venturi came out with the airbolt. And, like I said, it's made for 50 caliber, and I do believe their 50 caliber is .495, which Dennis has been building .495 caliber air guns for a long time.
Right.
So anybody out there who has a, like a Quackenbush with the right length barrel would be able to shoot one of these air bolts.
That's interesting. And we actually covered the airbolt. Air Venturi's booth was one of the stops that our editorial team made at SHOT Show this year, and you can view that at fishgame.com. If you just type in airbolt, you'll see the video. And I thought that was really interesting to showcase that to our audience because, again, I'm a big fan of air guns, and I want everybody else to be too. So... Right. I just love talking to guys like you, and I honor guys like you, Eric, because you're out there walking the walk and educating people with knowledge about air guns, and you're showing how powerful they really are and how much takedown power that they have and how accurate they are at the end of the day. It didn't used to be that way years ago. It really didn't.
There's still a lot of non-believers. I tell them what I do, and they look at me and they go, "What, a BB gun?"
Exactly.
And I'm like,
I get that too.
Yeah, BB, big bore.
Yeah, big bore. That's funny. That is funny.
Let's see. I have a Quackenbush 58 caliber pistol.
Oh, cool.
And it is shooting a 280 grain round ball at, I think the maximum velocity I've got so far is 620 feet per second.
Holy smokes.
That is almost 230 foot-pounds of energy.
Yeah, no, that gets up there.
That's not the exact number, but it's around that, and incredibly accurate. I can almost stack them at 50 yards.
Wow, that's great.
In fact, a couple of days ago, I shot a female sheep, a ewe, at 50 yards offhand with the pistol.
Whoa.
It took 10 steps, hit the ground, and it was done. And that, we're talking an incredible size hole going in and out.
Yeah.
And very, very accurate, and the power is there. It's like throwing a bowling ball.
Right.
Nothing's going to stop it.
Yeah, and it's slow, like a muzzleloader, if you want to compare it to that, or a shotgun slug, or something
slow
like
and heavy.
that. It's slow and heavy, and it's just kind of all the rage now in the firearm industry is subsonic, 300 blackouts and 25-45 sharps, and these kind of slow moving. The 25-45 is a little faster than the 300 blackout, but I mean, basically, targets that are 100 yards or 200 yards getting hit by something that hits like a 30-30, in firearm terms. And, yeah.
Well, when you talk about firearms and speed, a lot of people are going for the 7mm and all that because they want something that almost shoots like a laser.
Right.
And, if that's what they're into, then, to each their own. But to me, it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Yes.
Unless you're going for like really, really long range, which those guns would be great for something like that, 800, 900 yards, which, there's a TV show about shooting elk at that range.
Yeah, that's all about long range hunting. And
I love watching that because, that is a skill.
That is a skill, but I don't know if you necessarily show one man better than the other by making a 1,200-yard elk shot. I'm just not a fan of that, but that's just my personal opinion. It does take skill. I will agree with you there.
But there's so many variables.
Sure. Lots of variables of that kind of range, for sure. So, that's great. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you've got a lot on your plate as I do, and is there anything you'd like to let the audience know in closing? Not
every big bore air gun is the same. stick with the quality air rifles. Just be careful in what you do.
Sure.
Buy quality ammunition when it comes to it, and watch my videos.
That's right. That's right. Tell folks how to find you, Eric.
Okay, YouTube. If you type in my name, Eric Henderson, and Adventures Afield, AFIELD. Adventures Afield is the name of my show, and my show isn't just about hunting. It's about it's all about adventure. And that's
right.
My slogan. It's all about adventure. I have fishing on there. I do a lot of overlanding. Where you pack up your truck and you just go. I don't have any footage of that yet, but I'm into that, and I will be getting some on there.
Cool.
It's about the outdoors. It's about going to, like SHOT Show and going to manufacturers and interviewing them. My show is about a year old, but if you go to my YouTube page, I'd appreciate that. I need a lot of views.
Yeah, you need some views and subscribers. I know how that business goes.
But I'll just enjoy the outdoors.
No, that's great.
Share it with your children. We need a new crop of outdoorsmen.
No, we do.
The way that things are going nowadays, where video games and people brainwashing their kids, and guns are bad, eating meat is bad, killing animals is bad.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. I was just listening to Chester Moore's radio show. He's our editor-in-chief, and he has a radio show on KLVI here in Beaumont, Texas, East Texas. And he was basically making the point in his kind of rant this past Friday on his show. I was driving back from Houston listening to it on iHeartRadio, and he was basically saying that, hunters are the original conservationists. We're the original green movement. We're the original, to a lot of these things that are going on in the world today, where a lot of conservationists that call themselves conservationists are really preservationists.
Right. I mean, like Africa. A lot of the animals in Africa would be wiped out if it wasn't for the hunters.
If it wasn't for the hunters, absolutely.
Actually put a value on the animals. And the people who live there don't have a value on the animals.
Right.
Except, if a lion comes in and they're, eating their livestock, they'll just go out and slaughter all the lions.
Right.
Or if, a herd of animals comes in and is eating the grass that their animals are eating, they'll go out and slaughter them. Absolutely.
So hunting is such a powerful force in the continent of Africa alone, right. Let alone here in the States. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. What was that last part?
I said that's just Africa.
Right.
They actually put a value on there. Here, who puts more to conservation of animals than hunters do?
Yes.
I mean, how many millions of dollars a year to build wetlands for ducks and actually study deer and make sure that the herd is doing good. Right. A lot or most of that comes from the hunting licenses and all the taxes they put on the hunting accessories. Yes. Rifles and all that. Absolutely. It all comes from hunters.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of value. And the thing that I want to get out to the masses, in the best way we can as a hunting community, is that, hunters are not all bad, and we actually eat what we kill most of the time. Or if it's a predator, we have a reason for killing that animal to keep things in check and those kind of things. It's just about getting back to our roots and why we do what we do in the outdoors, and educating other people on that. Not necessarily shoving it down their throat going, my way's better than your way, but having that conversation of, here's why we do this as hunters. Here's why we do this as outdoors people, outdoors enthusiasts. I think that's definitely a wise conversation to have with folks that are non-hunters.
A lot of that too is that a lot of families base their income off of hunting. Sure. As far as like the outfitters, like in Montana, when they introduced the wolf up there, the wolves went out and knocked out a whole bunch of herds of elk. Right. And put a lot of outfitters out of business. Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for being on our show, and I definitely look forward to having you on again one of these days.
Thank you, Dustin, for having me.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eric Henderson from Adventures Afield, and also a shooter with Air Force Airguns and all the other companies that he is sponsored by. Really excited to have him on the show. Really excited that you joined us and were able to listen to that interview. It was awesome to have a guy like that with that much of a wealth of knowledge on air guns, on the show. And I've certainly talked about air guns before on this show. I just think that it's something that's new and up and coming, and something I wanted to showcase to the audience of what's going on. And I'll definitely have Eric's info in the show notes, because he does some amazing things on camera with air guns, long range shots, targets, shooting, hunting, a lot of hunting, and just a really great guy to have on the show. And I'm really excited he was able to join us. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the podcast. It only costs nothing to subscribe. And you get a new show every 2 weeks that we automatically crank out here from my little home studio. And also we have the magazine, which comes out every month of the year, 12 months a year, and that is Texas Fishing Game. And you can get a subscription online at fishgame.com, and also sign up for our newsletter and check out all of our other info there on fishgame.com. You can subscribe there to the magazine. You can get the digital issues in the magazine. You can also, again, sign up for the newsletter and check out all of our awesome web content on there. And then also we will be at the Bassmaster Classic. We just got done with the Houston Fishing Show, and coming up next later in March is the Bassmaster Classic. I should have a fishing guest on next show, just to give you a heads up on that. And we'll definitely be talking a little bit about the Bassmaster Classic and what's going on here in Texas, because we call this the year of the bass, because we have so much bass fishing stuff going on this year in Texas. And it's pretty awesome, and I can't believe that the Classic actually came here this year, so I'm really excited about that as well. So thank you so much again for watching, thank you so much again for reading, thank you so much again for listening, and have an awesome day in the outdoors.